Quitting is such a fucking dirty word. It is such a dirty word. No one wants to quit unless it's like smoking or some sort of addiction. No one wants to quit. But we really, really, really need to look at why that is, the shame that comes with quitting, and how quitting sometimes can ultimately be our biggest ally. Good morning and welcome back to the Sage Sorority. I'm your host, Shantel. How are we doing, guys? And if you are new here, welcome. The Sage Sorority is a London-based podcast for women in their 30s and 40s, discussing all the texture and nuance that womanhood truly brings. Over here, we like to talk about themes of sisterhood, self-worth, self-concept, love, dating, lifestyle, and all the things of modern womanhood. If that sounds good to you, please like and subscribe, share this episode with a friend, and be sure to take a screenshot, share it on Instagram stories, and let me know where you're listening from. Welcome back. It's 2026. This is actually our second episode in Jan, but I feel like New Year's Day doesn't really count as a real day in Jan. So welcome back for everyone who's in the throes of regular life already. And if you are still riding the Christmas holiday wave, I love you and I'm jealous. How are we all feeling? How are we all genuinely feeling? As you probably already know, and as you can definitely tell, January is really heavy on the be a better you content, right? And I absolutely understand the sentiment. I understand the reasoning. It is a fresh start, month 1 out of 12, day 1 out of 365, week 1 out of 52, and so on and so forth. And the trend of self-optimization and personal development has 10x'd over the last decade or so, and New Year's Day and New Year's resolution is never going to be not part of that, right? And although I have my own personal reasons and feelings about the real New Year's, which you guys know, I've mentioned it several times over the last few weeks, I really think it's Easter, spring equinox. I really don't think that cold, brutal winter is really the time to be starting something new. I think nesting, nurturing, and building off of what has already gone well over the last year is really where we should be. And we're kind of going to touch on that today. And I don't know about you guys, but I think the New Year's content is always just feels more intense. Like over the last few years with the surge of TikTok and Reels, this kind of content feels way more intense, right? Before, you were really only getting content like that in written form, which is a lot softer, I think, on the nervous system, if you want to say it that way. And you would pretty much only get this kind of content on YouTube. But because of short form content, it's really blown up. And that is all everyone has been talking about over the last month and also in this month as well. And tomorrow is actually the second Friday, which is the unofficial official Quitter's Day. And I'm sure even more content will come through about why you shouldn't quit, how you can keep going, so on and so forth. And although I absolutely believe that to have anything decent in life, that advice is solid, true, and evergreen, over here on the Sage Sorority, you know that we're not afraid to peel things back, not be contrarian just by sheer virtue, but to actually give nuance and texture to our lives because things are rarely black and white. And of course, on Quitter's Day for tomorrow, that's exactly what I'm going to do for you. This is not an episode about necessarily keeping your resolutions. This is really about figuring out, are your resolutions yours to begin with? What actually needs to be followed through on? And what can actually just be cast to the side. So let's get into it. So Quitter's Day was actually first identified by the fitness app Strava. I know it as a cyclist app. I think runners use it as well, but it's basically where you track and share like your routines and you can like add friends and stuff like that. Honestly, I've never used Strava, so if I'm butchering it and you're on Spotify, just correct me in the Spotify comments. But basically, they noticed a massive drop off by the second Friday of January. So since then, it's become this really big like marketing content, right? Like marketing, promotional, new year, new you, better you, etc. type of content. And that is crazy loud in the fitness world, right? So it makes sense. And it's always about, you don't want to quit on Quitter's Day. You don't want to be a quitter. Of course, who wants to identify as a quitter? And how do you stay on track? And of course, I'm here to kind of poke a little bit of a hole in that story and saying, but do you really need to follow through on everything that you set in front of you just because you set it in front of you? I mean, look at these statistics, right? 80% of New Year's resolutions fall off by mid-Jan. 80%. That's a really high number, which of course ties into my theory that this is not the real new year. And also I think we are creating goals and resolutions just for the sake of creating goals and resolutions. And I'm not even above it. I literally opened up my notes app on the 27th, 28th and wrote 2026 goals. And I was writing things down that I thought sounded good. And then when I read my list a few days later, I was like, do I even really care about these things? Like, do I really want to focus on these things for the year? And we can get so out of hand with writing down a million different things. And it's like, of course, in 3 weeks or 6 weeks, half of them you don't even remember because our brains are so overloaded that I really believe less is more. Intentional and curated, if you want to use those buzzwords. And normally when people see stats like that, they default it to people lack willpower, people are not disciplined enough, people don't want it bad enough. And I'm not going to say that's not true because I do think that it kind of is true as well. But what I want to do and what I want you to focus on for yourself is that, okay, if you know in your depths of depths that you know how to see things through. You do have willpower. You do have discipline. And be sure to find one or two things where you can really iron that out in your life. Small or big, it doesn't matter. One thing that I can say I'm very disciplined about is making my bed. I never made my bed. Growing up, I never made my bed. Late teens, 20s, I never made my bed. And it was actually COVID and lockdown that made me start making my bed. And it was just this idea that, okay, I'm working from home and we're staying home so much. So I need a real start to the day. And that just began with making my bed and I never stopped. So you can take something small or you can take something really large. Like no matter what, I work out 3 times a week, no matter what. And you've done that. Maybe you've had some weeks where you've fallen off because you've gotten sick, you go on vacation, takes you a while to get back into rhythm, but you know that pound for pound, like more often than not, you work out 3 times a day. So definitely make sure that you have real tangible things that you can point to in your life that showcase your discipline, your willpower, and your ability to follow things through. But what I want us to sit with is when you look at these goals and you look at these resolutions, and I encourage you to maybe look at some that you ironed out at the end of the year or maybe just a week ago and you still haven't really taken root from. Are they really yours to begin with? Are these things you genuinely care about? Are these things that are realistic, even in a stretch way, for you to actually accomplish in 2026? And you guys know on the pod, I talk a lot about looking inward instead of outward. So where are these goals coming from? Where are these resolutions coming from? Are they coming from you, your genuine soul, or are they coming from Instagram? Are they coming from your family? Are they coming from your parents? Because before we talk about quitting, we need to know what we're quitting and also why we're quitting it. We just get in autopilot and create things for the sake of creating them. And we need to step back and be like, do I really care about this? Do I really want this? And do I want it bad enough to focus on it for the next 12 months? I understand the sexiness of a fresh new start and what January 1st and the New Year's can bring. I get it. My birthday's on December 31st, so I truly, truly get it. The new year can be very emotional. We've got all this vision board content. You want to manifest things. Maybe you saw a lot of engagements over Christmas. Maybe you didn't lose the weight that you wanted to, and you're like, this is my new start. This is my new beginning. But where I want to draw the line and where I want you to really pay attention is how much of that is reactive instead of proactive, and how much of that is based on what you think you should want versus what you actually want. For example, I should wake up earlier. I should work out more. I should be more productive. All of these things, there's a really good quote that says you should never should on your life. And I think that this is very relevant to that. Working out is a really good place to start from because fitness is a huge goal for a lot of people at the beginning of the year. And yes, daily movement for our body is healthy. It aids to our digestion, our well-being, our mood, our longevity, our flexibility. There are 1,000,001 reasons why daily movement is a good thing and is beneficial to us. But it can get extremely lost in the noisiness of New Year's resolutions and the fitness world. Does that mean that you need to sign up for High Rocks? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that you now need to buy BCAAs, creatine, protein shakes? Absolutely not. It becomes very overwhelming. It becomes disingenuous. And you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I just feel like I should be doing it. And that's where I implore you to really take stock. For example, movement and fitness, you need to do things that you like. That is the best movement and the best fitness anyone could commit to. The willpower and the discipline and the routine comes far easier when you are doing something you actually enjoy. That doesn't mean in the middle of the workout or in the middle of the activity when you're feeling pain from your muscles and joints expanding in ways that you haven't before. It means that pound for pound, more often than not, you enjoy what you're doing. You enjoy the routine, you enjoy the space, you enjoy the instructor, you enjoy the group, whatever it is. You enjoy the solitude if you work out on your own. You enjoy having someone instruct you, as in a personal trainer. There are lots of ways for you to enjoy it and make it true for you. I've had people try to get me to join regular gyms for years, and I've always said no. For me to enjoy movement, it has to be something I enjoy, and it has to be a class. I need it to be a class. I need to put it in my iCal. That is the only way I will commit to it. And that's the only way that works for me, in addition to walking outside. I have a walking pad, used it for 2 weeks, and it's been in my storage ever since. I don't really enjoy a walking pad. I actually find it kind of makes me a little dizzy. I much prefer to walk outside. I would rather bundle up in -2-degree weather and walk outside in the fresh air and people watch than walk on a walking pad. Simple. And that's okay, because I know why I'm doing it and I know the benefits that it brings me, and it makes sense for me. And that's kind of what I want you to start thinking about your goals. Go through them ruthlessly. Does this make sense for you? Is this really what you want to focus on? And are you willing to push yourself to focus on it for the next 12 months? Another big trap is I should be more productive. So vague goals produce vague results, I'm just going to say. And also, being more productive in what sense? What does that actually mean? You have to really get granular with your goals. Otherwise, you're going to be floating aimlessly. Being more productive could mean better time management. It could be working harder. And again, what does working harder mean? Does it mean you need to dedicate yourself more to work? Does it mean that you need to dedicate yourself more to your knowledge and your learning? What exactly does being more productive mean to you specifically, and how does that show up in your life on a smaller scale so that you can have larger results? And we know these things come from, like I said, family and parents and friends, and also social media, and also old versions of yourself. You know, there's nothing worse than opening up your notes to write resolutions for 2026 and realizing that you're writing the same thing you did in 2023. So for example, one of my resolutions this year is to move out. And I want to move to a different space, not because I don't love my space. I actually do love my space, but I want something fresh. I want new energy, expansion, so on and so forth. And I was actually sitting down with a friend, and we were kind of going through like my pros and cons and my reasons why I should move out and why I shouldn't. And then it was like, but is this something that you need to focus on this year as opposed to last year or even next year? And I was like, truthfully, no. And it's like, could you get further on other goals by staying in your apartment? And I was like, yeah, actually, I should. And is it so dire that you will be unhappy and unsatisfied at the end of this year if you don't achieve this goal? And truthfully, no, I won't be. So that's what I mean. It's like, yes, you can have an idea, a goal, or a resolution. Absolutely, you can have that. But is it something that you really need to focus on this year, or is it just kind of a nice to have? And there's nothing wrong with nice to haves. I genuinely think you should separate that from really clear goals, but also less is more. Truthfully, resolutions that aren't genuine to you and don't 100% feel right and feel like running after are always going to feel like a fight. It's always going to feel like an uphill battle. You might have good moments, but then you'll slip. You guys know that I really believe life is truly a game of snakes and ladders. And this is exactly that. It'll feel like white knuckling and forcing yourself, but something that is actually pushing you forward, something that you genuinely want for yourself, is going to feel aligned. I think the goal for 2026 for all of us in a larger, genuine way is just to work from a place of alignment as opposed to forcing. Less is truly more. And when your less is tailored and specific to you, the more comes on its own. The more comes truly as a fruits of your labor. There is a difference between hard and wrong. And I always say sometimes the right decision is the hardest. Some things are frankly very difficult and very hard, and you're not making any headway because they're not right for you. And I've been in that situation more than once. We talk about sunken cost fallacy a lot when it comes to dating, but it applies to all aspects of your life. So take note. So if you're already a week into January, or a week and a half, depending on when you listen to this, and you don't feel compelled and inspired by your resolutions already, I want you to review your list and see where you could probably make some adjustments. So I want to talk quickly about the art of the strategic quit. Quitting is such a fucking dirty word. It is such a dirty word. No one wants to quit unless it's like smoking or some sort of addiction. No one wants to quit. But we really, really, really need to look at why that is, the shame that comes with quitting, and how quitting sometimes can ultimately be our biggest ally. We all know the quote, quitters never win and winners never quit. And yes, there's space for that. That is actually true, especially when we're talking about athletes and things like that and high performance. But actually, in real life, when you take away those smaller examples, strategic quitting is one of the best things you can do. And this message goes much harder to women because I feel like men are better with disconnecting from things that are no longer serving them because they don't have the same emotional connectivity to a lot of things the way women do. Women in general, and this is a huge generalization, but just roll with me, we stay in things far longer than we should. And like I said, we talk about this a lot in dating, and obviously it's very relevant. But you got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them. If you caught the reference, that is the song The Gambler by Kenny Rogers. And I'm telling you, great line, evergreen line. And I feel like as women, we get really caught up in the wrong side a little too often, in my opinion. Knowing when to walk away from a job, a goal, a task, a relationship, it's a skill and it is true discernment. And you know the D word is one of my favorite words ever in life. Strategic quitting is not quitting when it's hard, quitting when you're tired. You rest when you're tired, you don't quit. Using it as an excuse not to commit to anything. This is why I said being able to reference examples that you already have is key. And if you don't have examples, that is also data for you. Or simply abandoning any type of goal, resolution, or anything the moment it gets uncomfortable. Strategic quitting is aligning yourself with things that make sense for you. That's number one. Number two, admitting that maybe something you wanted to do in the past no longer serves you. This is something I had to learn the hard way over the course of my career. Number three, it is making space for the things that you actually want. That could be energetic space. That could also be physical space. That could be financial space. That could be emotional space, psychological space, whatever the space may be, make it. And then finally, choosing whatever it is that you want over the performance or what is cool or what is deemed necessary or deemed as important. And then finally, I would also say it's choosing the goal in favor of maybe immediate results or productivity. Sometimes you're going to be working on something that you genuinely care about, but you don't seem like you're getting ahead. You have to hold the line and you have to stay the course. So I know I talked about the sunk cost fallacy, and I just want to give a brief definition for those who maybe don't know what it is. Sunk cost fallacy is an idea and a theory, essentially, where a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy, a course of action, anything that they have been doing because they have invested heavily in it, even when it's clear that leaving it, quitting, abandoning it would be more beneficial. And this creeps into our lives in many, 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 many different ways. And we've heard it and we've seen it. Well, I already said I was going to do it, so I have to keep going. Or I already bought the gym membership, so I have to follow through. Or I already told people about it, so we have to get married. Or I already started writing this book, so I need to finish it. But just because you started something, it doesn't mean you have to finish it. And I know that we are wired to see things through from school and from being children and adolescents. And I believe in that. I really, really do. I think that that is really important. But sometimes the most radical, badass, girl boss thing to say is actually, I've had enough of this. It's served its purpose and it's time to move on. Simple. So some questions to ask yourself about your resolutions, about your goals, to know where they're coming from and if they're really tailor-made and fitted for you is, if no one knew that this was a goal, you couldn't tell anyone, you couldn't post anything, no one on planet Earth would know, would you still want it? Would you still want what you're trying to achieve? I think that's a really good one. If no one necessarily could see the weight loss, would you want it? Would you care? I think that's a really fascinating question. Another one would be, do you want the outcome of this goal, or do you want to be perceived or received as the type of person who does these things, has these things, or achieved said goal. I think that this is a really interesting one, especially in our age of social media. Do you really want the thing that you want, or do you just want to be perceived in a certain way and that person you believe has the thing that you're aiming for? And obviously, whatever you want is whatever you want. But as someone who studied fashion and I've loved fashion and style and beauty since I was a kid, this I think is the most obvious on social media. It's like, do you really want that coat, or are you just being marketed very heavily that you believe that coat signals XYZ and that's why you want it? Another one simply is, do these goals excite me or do they literally drain me? If the thought of learning to ski excites you, even though you know it'll be difficult, that's probably a goal that is worth going after. But if the idea of it feels like a drain, feels like it's expensive, feels like it's a waste of time, is that really a resolution that you need to carry with you in 2026? And then finally, this is a much bigger philosophical existential question. Is this goal leading me to the life that I want? Or is this leading me to the life that I think I should want? Again, is this getting you closer to the person you genuinely want to be? Or is this just getting you closer to the person you think you should be? I want you guys to hear me and hear me well, that you are allowed to quit anything that doesn't serve you. This is something that really sounds so basic, but for me has been so freeing, especially over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. Just being like, you know what? This is not for me, and that is okay. You guys want a real, tangible, money on the line example? I will give you one. 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to train for mat Pilates. I love Pilates as a practice. I've been doing Pilates on and off since 2015. I love it. I have always appreciated the art, all of the things. And I went to school. I put down real money and I went to the most expensive Pilates training in London, if not the second most expensive. And long story short, it was not a good experience. I didn't like it. I used to come home from training and I would feel so drained, like to the point where I would have to go to sleep, like in the evening, because I felt so drained. I was supposed to go to Sicily with my friend on a trip. I had to cancel the trip because I had zero energy and zero joy. When I tell you, my joy was zapped out of me when I was training. And initially I was like, okay, it's just the rhythm of being in school, right? School is tough. I finished all my in classes. I didn't do my final exam. And I just realized that, yeah, I actually don't want to do this. I don't want to be a Pilates instructor. I don't want to ship myself from studio to studio doing 45-minute classes and being on. And no, I actually don't want to do that. I have ideas for studios and I have ideas for classes and I love Pilates. And I think there is a ton of cool stuff that could really happen with Pilates classes and women of color in Pilates and all the ideas. Absolutely, it's there. But to be an instructor, to be certified, I was like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want it. I didn't find this experience enjoyable at all. I didn't particularly love my school, didn't particularly love my instructors. Was not for me. Was not for me. I know women that have done it. They've gone through the process. They loved it. Some have picked up the practice and decided to be instructors. Some have not. And I commend and respect all decisions across the board. It's an experience I'm glad I had. I checked off the box. I don't have to worry about if maybe I should have whatever, because I did it. And I'm also okay with coming out the other side of that and realizing that, yeah, I did it. And what I realized most is that it's just not for me. I think that is such a powerful position to be in. And I want to encourage you to try things out. Not everything is going to be a home run. And if you live your life abundantly, and you're open to trying new things and you're open to meeting new people and you're open to going to new places, et cetera, not everything can be a home run because that's just the numbers game. That's probability. And that is okay. That is a life truly enriched. So I just want to add in that footnote. So yeah, technically, can I lead a Pilates class? Yes, I can, but then legally I can't, and I'm not insured. So yeah, that's my story. And one important point that I will leave you on in this segment is that I don't want you to hear this and just think that you can quit any and everything. That's not what I'm saying. What we're going to talk about now is when you decide to quit, what comes next. Ultimately, you create space. When you realize that a goal was not for you, you create space. Physical, digital, mental, whatever. And that space can be well received. You're like, thank God I have this break that I know my soul needed. Or it can also be uncomfortable because we are, in some ways, I believe we're bills, but more so, I believe we are socialized to continuously strive and continuously ascend and go up and up and up, especially when it comes to doing things and being more productive and success and money. Ultimately, you need space to have clarity. And we all know how much I love the C word here. Clarity is where all good things come from. So I want to change the language a little bit. And instead of resolutions, we're going to do intentions. Like, what are your 2026 intentions? Resolutions can be hard and fast. You either did them or you didn't. Intentions are guided. They are another hand on your path through life. They are, in my opinion, they are warm. They are comforting. They are encouraging. They are ideas that you see through, but they are paths more than anything that you follow. It's more about how you want to feel on a day-to-day, how you want to live your life, rather than did you do this thing X or Y. So maybe instead of I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, which is a very good goal, by the way, quite an ambitious physical goal. Maybe it's I want to feel strong in my body, or maybe it's I want to feel comfortable in a swimsuit. Or maybe it's, I want to eat more whole foods. Those are very clear things. And yes, some could say those are harder to track. And I wouldn't disagree with you. But what I would also say is these become more of a lifestyle than a rigid rule. And since it's still at the beginning of the year, I do want you guys to think, how do you want to feel this year? How do you want to feel this year? Take every aspect of your life. Home, work, self, inside, outside, whatever. How do you want to feel about it this year? I think that's a really good way to be guided in your intentions for the year. I think being honest about the season of life that you're in is very, very, very realistic as well and helpful ultimately with intentions that you'll be able to see through in a genuine way. And that's kind of what I did with the apartment thing. It was like, I'm just not in a season maybe to move. Maybe I am, but I'm not in a season where I need to put that pressure on myself. It's just that kind of idea. If you're in the season of working really hard and striving for a promotion, maybe this year is not your year to focus on 40 solo trips and like 10 new boyfriends. Maybe that'll be your 2027 goal. You know what I mean? And also, what does that season need from me to thrive? The focuses that I have in my life right now, what does it need from me? If you're in a season of young children or you're in a season of teenagers, what does that season require from you to live it out as best as possible and as true to you as possible? And finally, the age-old question, which is always good, what would you do if you weren't trying to prove anything to anyone? Okay, and maybe quitting and setting intentions for the year is the most aligned thing that you can truly do. This is not lowering your standards, and this is not giving up on growth, and this is not living in your truth. This is actually living in alignment, being super radically honest about yourself, about what you want, not what you think you should want, and truly getting clarity, clearing away the noise so that you can really listen to yourself and figure out where it is you're going. So this week, a little bit of homework, which I never really do. I want you guys to look at your 2026 resolutions and make sure that they're all there for the right reasons and that they should be on your list. These are things you actually want. If you want to toss it out completely and join me in having 2026 intentions, I am with you. Sometimes they can be vague, sometimes they can be specific, but I think intentions fuse more into our lifestyle and yield better results. For me, I want to intentionally be curious this year, more workshops, more discussions, new fitness classes, new recipes. I want to live curiously this year. And that's something I can implement in almost any aspect of my life. And this year, I want to be super intentional with where I'm spending my space, especially with other people, and pour into relationships that are 1000% pouring back into me and using discernment when I need to move closer or create distance. So those are two of my major intentions for this year. What are yours? Comment down below. That's all I got this week. If any of this resonated with you guys, you know where to find me. I've got my Instagram channel on my personal page at Shantel Russo. So if you are into IG channels, I highly recommend joining me there. Secondly, the Sage Sorority Substack is going to have a refresh this year. As you guys know, I talked about it last year. We will have a paid membership coming. That is where the paid stuff is going to live. I am so excited. There's so much more that I want to say and do. And Substack has implemented video capabilities. So that will be very helpful for me because sometimes I want to have a written word. Sometimes I want to have video and just like musings that I want to share with you guys, maybe off the pod. So I'm really looking forward to that. That will definitely be coming this year, first quarter for sure. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend. I think that the things that we're talking about here is so needed, and there's so many other women that I want to share this message with. So please do me a solid and subscribe to the Sage Sorority, wherever you get your podcast. That's it for me this week, guys. I love you so much. I will talk to you next week. Have an amazing week and have an amazing Quitters Day. Bye.